The transport ship Galactic Harmony drifted through the void between star systems, its hull gleaming silver against the backdrop of distant nebulae. Inside the maximum security detention bay, Captain Marcus Chen sat quietly on the reinforced bench, his hands folded in his lap. The energy restraints around his wrists hummed softly, designed to contain beings far stronger than any human had ever been measured to be. 3 guards stood outside his cell, a towering Krathan warrior whose scales rippled with nervous energy, a sleek Voidian whose tentacles twitched with each of Marcus's movements, and a hulking Goran whose 4 arms constantly shifted position on his weapons. They watched him like he might explode at any moment. "I still don't understand why we need 3 guards for 1 human," muttered Kex, the Krathan. His voice carried the rumbling undertone that made his species such effective intimidators. "The records show they're barely stronger than a Zelian infant." Yith, the Voidian, extended a sensor tendril toward the cell. "The Council's orders were specific. This particular human is to be treated as a Class A threat. Maximum containment protocols until we reach the judicial station." "But look at him," Kex insisted, gesturing with a clawed hand. "He's just sitting there, not even trying to break free. Most species would be raging against the restraints by now, or at least demanding to know why they're being held." Marcus had been listening to this conversation for the past 6 hours, ever since he'd been transferred from the diplomatic vessel where he'd been serving as Earth's cultural attaché. The charges against him were serious, allegedly inciting violence on 3 different worlds, corrupting peaceful societies with human aggression, and worst of all, teaching other species to fight back against oppression. All completely false, but apparently someone with significant influence wanted him out of the picture. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here he was, being transported as the most dangerous thing the galaxy had ever seen, when in reality he'd spent the last 5 years working tirelessly to promote peace between species. His job had been to show other civilizations that humans could be valuable partners, not threats. He'd helped negotiate 17 different trade agreements, resolved 6 border disputes, and even convinced the notoriously xenophobic Kelthrians to open their first embassy to alien species. "Sir Chen," called out Drac, the 4-armed Goran guard. His voice was surprisingly gentle for someone built like a living tank. "Do you require sustenance? Our medical scans indicate your metabolism needs regular fuel intake." Marcus looked up with a slight smile. "I appreciate the concern, but I'm fine for now. Thank you for asking." The 3 guards exchanged glances. In their experience, dangerous criminals didn't express gratitude for basic necessities. "You see," Kex said, lowering his voice, "what kind of threat says thank you to his guards?" Before anyone could respond, the ship's communication system crackled to life. "Attention, all crew members. We are receiving a priority distress signal from the mining colony on Zerion 7. Multiple ships appear to be in distress. We are the closest vessel capable of providing assistance." Captain Tivar's voice echoed through the detention bay as he addressed the ship-wide announcement. "As per galactic rescue protocols, we are obligated to respond. All departments prepare for emergency operations. Estimated arrival at Zerion 7 in 4 standard hours." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He'd been to Zerion 7 during his diplomatic missions. It was a peaceful mining operation run by the gentle Picorians, who had never shown aggression toward any species in their recorded history. If they were sending distress signals, something was very wrong. "Zerion 7? Yith's tentacles curled with concern. "That's one of the most secure systems in this sector. The Picorians have some of the most advanced mining technology in known space. What could threaten them?" Over the next several hours, more details filtered down to the detention bay through routine crew communications. Pirates, it seemed. But not just any pirates. A massive fleet of Ravagers, the most brutal and efficient raiders in the galaxy. They had overwhelmed the system's modest defense force and were systematically stripping not just the mining equipment, but taking the Picorian workers as slaves. Marcus paced in his small cell, his mind racing. He knew the Picorians personally. They were a species that had evolved without any concept of violence. Their entire culture was built around cooperation and mutual aid. They literally didn't have words in their language for concepts like enemy or attack. If Ravagers had them, those innocent beings would be suffering beyond imagination. 23 ships, Drac reported after receiving an update from the bridge. "The Ravager fleet has 23 ships, including at least 4 heavy cruisers. We're just one transport with minimal weapons." Captain Tivar will follow protocol, Yith said, though his voice carried doubt. We'll maintain safe distance, document the situation, and call for a proper military response. Marcus stopped packing. How long would a military response take? The three guards looked at him with surprise. Kex answered slowly, at least 15 hours for the nearest patrol fleet to arrive. Why? Because in 15 hours, every Picorian on that colony will either be dead or worse, Marcus said quietly. Ravagers don't take slaves to treat them well. They'll start with the youngest and weakest, using them to break the spirits of the others. You seem to know a lot about Ravager tactics, Yith observed, his sensor tendrils extending toward Marcus again. I've studied them, Marcus replied. Understanding threats was part of my job as a cultural attaché. The Ravagers aren't just pirates, they're a warrior culture that views cruelty as art. They don't just take what they want, they enjoy the process of taking it. The ship shuddered as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Through the small porthole in the detention bay, they could see the orange glow of Zirian 7 sun, and the dark shapes of ships moving between the planets like hungry insects. This is Captain Tivar to all hands, came the announcement. We have arrived at Zirian 7. Long-range scans confirm 23 Ravager vessels and signs of ongoing hostile action on the mining colony. We are maintaining position at the edge of the system while we assess the situation. Marcus gripped the bars of his cell. Captain Tivar needs to know something about the Ravagers, something that might help. You're a prisoner, Kex reminded him. Whatever you think you know. I know how to stop them, Marcus interrupted. Not through violence, through understanding their culture, but I need to speak with your captain. The three guards looked at each other uncertainly. Their orders were clear about maintaining containment, but they were also bound by their duty to report any information that might help save lives. I'll contact the bridge, Drac decided, but you stay exactly where you are. While Drac made the call, Marcus watched through the porthole as one of the Ravager ships broke off from the main fleet and began moving toward them. It was a sleek, black vessel with weapon arrays that could tear through their transport's shields in seconds. Bridge wants to know what kind of information, Drac reported. Tell them that Ravagers have a code of honor that values individual combat prowess above everything else, Marcus said urgently. They're not just pirates. They're a society built around the concept that might makes right, but it has to be proven might. If someone can demonstrate superior capability in single combat, Ravager law requires them to acknowledge that superiority. Single combat, Yith's tentacles writhed with agitation. You're suggesting someone fight a Ravager warrior. They're 3 meters tall and built like living weapons. I'm not suggesting it, Marcus said quietly. I'm volunteering for it. The detention bay fell silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. The approaching Ravager vessel was now visible as more than just a dot, its predatory lines growing larger by the minute. You're insane, Kex said flatly. Humans aren't fighters. You're soft-bodied, weak creatures with no natural weapons. A Ravager would tear you apart in seconds. Marcus met his eyes steadily. Maybe, but what's the alternative? Let them slaughter an entire colony of innocent beings while we wait for help that might arrive too late. The bridge wants you brought up, Drac announced, his 4 hands moving to unlock the cell. Captain's orders, full restraints remain in place. As they made their way through the ship's corridors, Marcus could see crew members at their stations, faces tense with worry. The Galactic Harmony was a transport vessel designed for moving cargo and passengers safely from one system to another. It had basic shields and minimal weapons, nothing that could stand against even one Ravager ship, let alone 23. The bridge was a masterpiece of multi-species cooperation, with workstations designed for the various physical requirements of different crew members. Captain Tivar, a distinguished Altarian with silver skin and large, intelligent eyes, turned as Marcus was escorted in. Cultural attaché Chen, Tivar said formally. Or should I say, alleged war criminal Chen? Sir Chen will do fine, Marcus replied. I understand you're facing a difficult situation. That's an understatement. Tivar gestured to the main view screen, where the Ravager fleet was clearly visible surrounding the mining colony. We've received 17 separate distress calls in the last hour. The Picorians are being systematically captured and tortured. Our weapons are insufficient to engage even their smallest ship. I believe I can help, Marcus said, but you're not going to like my solution. Tivar's large eyes focused on him intently. I'm listening. Ravager culture is built around individual dominance, Marcus explained. Their entire social structure depends on the strongest leading the weak. But there's a provision in their ancient codes. If an outsider can defeat their champion in single combat, they must acknowledge that outsider's authority and withdraw from the conflict. Single combat with a Ravager champion? Tivar's voice rose. That's suicide. Ravagers are genetically engineered for warfare. They're stronger than Krathens, faster than Voidians, and more durable than Gorons. No single individual has ever defeated one in personal combat. Then maybe it's time someone tried, Marcus said calmly. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Chief Navigator Vex, a spindly Centaurian, spoke up. Sir, with respect, humans are known to be one of the physically weakest species in the galaxy. Our databases show that human bone density, muscle mass, and reaction time are all well below galactic average. Your databases are incomplete, Marcus replied. They're based on humans in peaceful, civilized environments, but humans are adaptable. We evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us, from the weather to the wildlife. We learned to survive not by being the biggest or strongest, but by being the smartest and most persistent. That's irrelevant against a Ravager champion, Tivar said. They're not just strong, they're trained from birth to kill. Their entire existence is devoted to perfecting the art of combat. Marcus nodded. Which means they follow rules. They have techniques, patterns, strategies that have worked for them before. That makes them predictable. You're talking about facing a 3-meter-tall killing machine with your bare hands, Science Officer Nala pointed out. Even if you somehow survived the first 30 seconds, their physical advantages would overwhelm any tactical considerations. Maybe, Marcus acknowledged. But what's our alternative? We can't outfight them and we can't outrun them. That Ravager ship is already moving to intercept us. In about 20 minutes they'll be in weapons range, and then we'll all be prisoners or corpses. Tivar stared at the tactical display, where the approaching Ravager vessel showed as a red icon growing steadily larger. Even if I agreed to this insanity, how would we contact their fleet? How would we arrange this combat? Ravagers monitor all communication frequencies, Marcus said. They'll be listening to us right now. All you have to do is issue a formal challenge according to their protocols. Tell them that a warrior aboard this vessel demands the right of single combat to determine dominance over this system. A warrior? Tivar looked at Marcus skeptically. No offense, but you don't exactly fit the profile. Appearances can be deceiving, Marcus said quietly. Captain, there are things about humans that your databases don't capture. We're not the strongest or fastest species, but we have something that most others don't. Which is, we don't know when to give up. The Ravager ship was now close enough that they could make out details of its hull. The jagged, aggressive lines that characterized all their vessels, the weapon ports that gaped like hungry mouths, the engine arrays that could propel it faster than anything their transport could achieve. Sir, Communications Officer Yillen called out, his voice tight with anxiety. We're being hailed by the Ravager vessel. They're demanding we prepare to be boarded. Tivar looked at Marcus for a long moment, then at the view screen showing the colony under attack. Finally, he made his decision. Yillen, open a channel to the Ravager fleet, full broadcast. Channel open, sir. Tivar took a deep breath. This is Captain Tivar of the transport vessel * Galactic Harmony *. In accordance with the ancient codes of the Ravager nation, I hereby declare that a warrior aboard this vessel invokes the right of honorable combat. We challenge your champion to single battle for dominance over this system. The response came almost immediately, a harsh, guttural laugh that seemed to shake the bridge speakers. This is War Chief Grakoth of the Ravager Fleet Blood Talon *. Your pathetic vessel dares to challenge the might of the Ravager nation. What manner of warrior do you possess that thinks they can stand against our champions? Tivar looked at Marcus, who nodded. We possess a human. The laughter stopped abruptly. There was a long pause before Grakoth's voice came back, thoughtful now instead of mocking. A human, the soft-skinned weaklings from the Rim worlds. This is either a joke or a trap. Neither, Tivar replied. A formal challenge has been issued according to your own codes. Will you honor them, or has the Ravager nation forgotten the meaning of courage? Another pause, longer this time. When Grakoth spoke again, there was something like anticipation in his voice. "Very well, your human may face our champion aboard my vessel. If your warrior defeats our champion in honorable combat, we will withdraw from this system. When your warrior falls, we will take this colony and everyone aboard your ship as prizes. Do you accept these terms?" Marcus stepped forward. "I accept." "Then prepare to die, human. We will send a shuttle for you within the hour. Come alone and unarmed, weapons will be provided as tradition demands." The channel closed, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "What have we done?" Yelen whispered. Marcus was already planning, his mind racing through everything he knew about Ravager combat traditions, their physical capabilities, their psychological patterns. He would have one chance, maybe 30 seconds before their champion's superior strength and speed overwhelmed him. But 30 seconds could be enough if he used them correctly. "You've given those people down there hope," he said quietly, looking at the colony on the view screen. "And sometimes hope is all we need." The shuttle bay of the Ravager ship Blood Talon was exactly what Marcus had expected. Dark metal walls covered in battle scars, weapon racks displaying an impressive array of bladed instruments, and the acrid smell of engine fuel mixed with something that might have been dried blood. The Ravager escort that had brought him from the Galactic Harmony shoved him forward with casual violence. Marcus stumbled but kept his footing, taking in every detail of his surroundings. The gravity here was heavier than standard, probably set to accommodate the Ravager's greater mass. The lighting was dimmer than most species preferred, casting everything in reddish shadows that made the already intimidating space feel like stepping into the mouth of some great predator. "Move, soft skin," growled the escort, a scarred Ravager whose left arm had been replaced with a mechanical augment that ended in wicked-looking claws. "War Chief Grakoth awaits." They walked through corridors lined with trophies, pieces of armor from defeated enemies, weapons taken in battle, and what looked like preserved body parts from various species. Marcus forced himself to remain calm, even as his mind cataloged every detail. Understanding his enemy's psychology would be crucial for what was about to happen. The combat chamber was a circular arena perhaps 20 meters across, surrounded by tiered seating where dozens of Ravager warriors had gathered to watch the spectacle. They were impressive specimens, each one standing well over 2 meters tall, with dense muscle mass, thick bone ridges, and skin that looked like it could turn aside most bladed weapons. Their eyes gleamed with anticipation as they saw Marcus enter. War Chief Grakoth sat on a throne made from the hull plating of some unfortunate ship, his massive frame draped in a cloak of deep red that matched the dried blood on his claws. He was larger than the others, with ritual scars covering his arms and face, and when he smiled, Marcus could see that several of his teeth had been replaced with sharpened metal. "So," Grakoth rumbled, his voice carrying easily across the chamber, "this is the human who thinks he can stand against the might of the Ravager nation. You are even smaller than I imagined." Marcus stood quietly in the center of the arena, his hands at his sides, showing no outward sign of fear or aggression. Around him, the Ravager warriors jeered and laughed, making comments in their harsh language about how quickly their champion would tear him apart. "Tell me, little human," Grakoth continued, "what delusion makes you think you can survive even moments against Korak the Destroyer?" A section of the arena floor slid away, and from the depths below rose a platform carrying the largest Ravager Marcus had ever seen. Korak stood nearly 3 meters tall, with arms like tree trunks and claws that gleamed with fresh sharpening. Ritual scarification covered his entire torso in intricate patterns that told the story of his victories. Around his neck hung a necklace of what looked like finger bones from various species. The crowd erupted in cheers and battle cries as their champion stepped into the arena. Korak raised his arms, flexing muscles that could probably crush steel, and roared his challenge to the ceiling. The sound was deafening, a primal expression of dominance that made every instinct in Marcus's body scream at him to run. Instead, he watched and waited. "Choose your weapon, human," Grakoth announced. Racks of bladed instruments descended from the ceiling, swords, axes, spears, and implements Marcus didn't recognize, but which all looked designed to cause maximum damage. "Korak will grant you that much honor before he tears you apart." Marcus walked slowly around the weapon racks, appearing to consider his options while actually studying Korak's movements. The Ravager champion was incredibly powerful, but power often came at the cost of flexibility. His movements, while impressively strong, followed predictable patterns. Like most beings who relied primarily on physical dominance, Korak telegraphed his intentions through his body language. "I don't need a weapon," Marcus said finally, his voice carrying clearly through the suddenly quiet arena. The silence lasted for perhaps 3 seconds before the Ravager warriors exploded into laughter and shouted insults. Even Grakoth seemed genuinely amused. "No weapon," the war chief called out. "Human, your bravery has crossed the line into madness. Korak's claws alone are sharper than most blades." "I understand," Marcus replied calmly, "but I prefer to face my challenges as I am." Korak studied him with something like confusion. In his experience, smaller opponents usually tried to compensate with reach weapons or speed advantages. A being as small as this human choosing to face him with nothing but natural abilities was unprecedented. "Your funeral, soft skin," Korak rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "I will make it quick." "I appreciate that," Marcus said and meant it. Grakoth raised one clawed hand for silence. "Let the terms be clearly stated before all present. If the human somehow defeats our champion in honorable combat, the Ravager fleet will withdraw from this system immediately. When Korak proves victorious, we claim this system and all vessels within it as prizes of war. Does the human understand and accept these terms?" "I do," Marcus said. "And does Korak the Destroyer accept the challenge of this, human?" Korak's response was a roar that made the arena floor vibrate. "Then let the combat begin." Korak charged immediately, closing the distance between them in 2 massive strides, his claws extended to rake down and disembowel his tiny opponent. It was a classic Ravager opening, overwhelming force applied with devastating efficiency. Marcus was already moving before Korak completed his first step. Not away from the charge, but slightly to the side and forward, into a position that would be behind the Ravager's leading arm when the attack reached its full extension. Years of studying alien combat forms had taught him that most species, particularly the larger ones, fought in patterns that made perfect sense for their physiology, but could be predicted by someone who understood their limitations. Korak's claws swept through empty air as Marcus ducked low and struck upward with his palm, driving it into the nerve cluster just below the Ravager's ribcage. It was a technique he'd learned from studying Centaurian combat forms, a species that had evolved to fight opponents much larger than themselves. The blow shouldn't have done anything significant to someone Korak's size, but Marcus had aimed for a very specific spot. Ravager anatomy included a large nerve bundle that controlled breathing rhythm, and a precise strike that could cause temporary paralysis of the diaphragm. Korak stumbled, his breathing suddenly labored, confusion replacing confidence in his eyes. How had such a small being found such a specific vulnerability? The arena had gone quiet again, the Ravager warriors trying to understand what they'd just witnessed. Their champion was supposed to end this in seconds, not be staggered by the first exchange. Marcus didn't pause to appreciate their confusion. He flowed around behind Korak, using the larger being's temporary disorientation to position himself at another precise anatomical target. This time he struck at the base of Korak's skull, where bone ridges created a narrow gap that protected the brain stem. The strike was perfectly placed and timed, but Korak's conditioning saved him. The impact that might have dropped a smaller opponent only served to clear his head and restore his breathing. The champion spun with remarkable speed for someone his size, backhanding at where Marcus should have been. But Marcus was already gone, having anticipated the counterstrike. He was learning the rhythm of Korak's movements now, understanding how the Ravager's size and strength created both advantages and limitations. "Impossible," someone in the crowd shouted. "How is the soft skin moving like that?" Marcus could have explained that humans were ambush predators who had evolved to take down prey much larger than themselves, but he was too busy staying alive. Korak was adapting to his tactics now, being more careful with his positioning, not committing to attacks that left him vulnerable. The next exchange lasted longer, with Korak using his reach advantage to keep Marcus at a distance while seeking an opening for a decisive strike. Marcus had to give ground, circling the arena while looking for opportunities that became increasingly rare as the Ravager champion adjusted his strategy. This was the crucial phase Marcus had known would come. Korak was too experienced to fall for the same tricks twice, and his physical advantages were starting to tell. Marcus's breathing was becoming labored while Korak seemed barely winded. Human endurance was legendary, but even that had limits against an opponent this formidable. "Growing tired, little human?" Korak taunted, keeping his claws between them as they circled each other. "Your clever tricks won't work forever." Marcus didn't waste breath responding. He was counting heartbeats, measuring distances, calculating angles. Everything would depend on timing now. Korak feinted left, then charged right, hopping to catch Marcus moving the wrong direction. It was a good strategy, and it almost worked. Marcus barely avoided the first swipe of those massive claws, feeling the air displacement as they passed close enough to tear his clothing. But the dodge put him exactly where he needed to be for what came next. Instead of retreating from Korak's follow-up attack, Marcus stepped forward into it, getting inside the arc of those deadly claws where they couldn't reach him. Korak tried to adjust, bringing his arms down to crush this annoying opponent against his chest, but Marcus was ready for that too. He jumped upward, using Korak's own momentum to propel himself higher, and wrapped his arms around the Ravager's thick neck. Not to strangle, Korak's neck was too powerful for that, but to access the pressure points that controlled blood flow to the brain. "What are you doing?" Korak snarled, reaching up to tear Marcus away. "Something humans learned a long time ago," Marcus replied, applying precise pressure to the carotid arteries. "We call it the sleeper hold." Korak's struggles became more frantic as he realized what was happening, but Marcus held on with the desperate strength that only humans seemed to possess when everything was at stake. The Ravager champion tried to slam him against the arena walls, to claw him free, to crush him, but Marcus endured it all, maintaining his grip with the kind of stubborn persistence that had allowed his species to survive on a world that tried to kill them daily. Korak's movements became sluggish as oxygen deprivation took effect. The massive Ravager warrior, who had never been defeated in personal combat, slowly sank to his knees as consciousness faded. The arena was completely silent now. Hundreds of Ravager warriors watched in stunned disbelief as their greatest champion toppled forward, unconscious, with a human barely half his size still clinging to his neck. Marcus released his grip and rolled clear, breathing hard but standing triumphant in the center of the arena. He looked up at War Chief Grakoth, who was staring down at the scene with an expression that mixed shock, respect, and something that might have been fear. "According to your own codes," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly in the silence, "I have defeated your champion in honorable combat. Will the Ravager nation honor its agreement?" Grakoth stood slowly from his throne, his eyes never leaving Marcus. Around them, the other Ravager warriors remained frozen, uncertain how to react to something they had never imagined possible. "In 300 years of raiding," Grakoth said finally, "no champion of ours has ever fallen to an outsider. How did you do it?" Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead, still catching his breath. "Your champion fought exactly the way his training taught him to fight. He was strong, fast, and skilled, but he expected his opponent to fight the same way. And humans don't. Humans don't have the luxury of fighting fair," Marcus replied. "We evolved as persistence hunters on a world where everything was bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than we were. We learned to survive by being smarter, more adaptable, and more determined than our enemies." Grakoth descended from his throne and walked to where Korak was slowly regaining consciousness. The champion looked up with confusion and shame as he realized what had happened. "Rise, Korak," Grakoth said gently. "You fought with honor and skill. There is no shame in being defeated by a superior warrior." Then he turned to Marcus, and his expression was unreadable. "By the ancient codes of our people, you have proven your dominance in this system. The Ravager fleet will withdraw as agreed." He paused, studying Marcus with new interest. "But I have questions, human, questions about your species that our intelligence was clearly wrong about." "What questions?" Marcus asked. "If humans are capable of what we witnessed here today, why does the galaxy believe you are weak? Why do the databases list your species as physically inferior?" Marcus smiled grimly. "Because we've spent the last 50 years trying to convince everyone that we're peaceful. We've worked very hard to be seen as diplomats and traders rather than threats. We thought it would make us better neighbors." "And the other humans, do they all fight as you do?" "I'm actually below average for human combat capability," Marcus said honestly. I'm a diplomat, not a soldier. You should probably see what our actual warriors can do sometime. Grakoth was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Around them, the other Ravager warriors watched their leader with growing concern as the implications sank in. War Chief, one of them called out, if this human speaks truth, then our intelligence about their species is dangerously flawed. More than flawed, Grakoth replied slowly. If their diplomats can defeat our champions, what might their soldiers be capable of? Marcus saw the fear beginning to spread through the arena and decided to offer them something else to think about. War Chief Grakoth, may I propose something? War Chief Grakoth studied Marcus with eyes that held centuries of combat experience. The arena remained eerily quiet, hundreds of Ravager warriors waiting to see how their leader would respond to whatever this small human was about to propose. Speak, Grakoth said simply. Your people are warriors, Marcus began, gesturing to the assembled crowd. It's not just what you do, it's who you are. That's not something to be ashamed of. The galaxy needs warriors sometimes. The galaxy fears us, Korak said, having fully recovered consciousness. There was no resentment in his voice, only curiosity about the being who had defeated him. They see us as nothing more than pirates and raiders. That's because you've been raiding the wrong targets, Marcus replied. You've been attacking peaceful miners and traders because they're easy prey, but easy prey doesn't test your skills or prove your worth. Any coward can terrorize those weaker than themselves. Grakoth's scarred face remained impassive, but several warriors in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. They prided themselves on being honorable combatants, even if the rest of the galaxy didn't see it that way. What do you suggest? Grakoth asked. Marcus looked around the arena, meeting the eyes of dozens of hardened fighters. There are real threats out there, enemies that the peaceful species can't handle on their own. Pirates who prey on civilian ships, slave traders who capture innocents, raiders who destroy entire colonies for profit. Those are worthy opponents for warriors of your caliber. You suggest we become mercenaries, one of the warriors called out from the stands. Fight other people's battles for pay. I suggest you become what you claim to be, honorable warriors defending those who cannot defend themselves, Marcus replied. The galaxy is full of real monsters. Fight them instead of creating more victims. Grakoth walked slowly around the arena, his claws clicking against the metal floor as he considered this. And what would humans offer in return for such a career change? Training, Marcus said without hesitation. Combat techniques, strategic planning, technological support. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We've learned some things that might interest you. You would teach us to fight? Korak asked, genuine surprise in his voice. Even after we threatened your people. Especially because you threatened my people, Marcus answered. I'd rather have warriors like you as allies than enemies. Besides, teaching you to fight better doesn't worry me. Why not? Grakoth asked. Marcus smiled. Because the better you become at fighting, the more you'll appreciate what humans can do. We've spent our entire evolutionary history fighting things that wanted to eat us. We got very good at it. The war chief stopped packing and fixed Marcus with an intense stare. You speak of human combat capabilities as if they far exceed what we witnessed today, yet our intelligence suggests. Your intelligence is based on humans in peacetime, Marcus interrupted. Diplomats, traders, scientists, colonists, you've never seen humans at war. And what are humans like at war? Grakoth asked quietly. Marcus was silent for a moment, remembering stories his grandfather had told him about the old days, before humanity had joined the galactic community and decided to pursue peace instead of conquest. Humans at war don't fight for territory or resources, he said finally. We fight for our families, our friends, our way of life. We fight until there's nothing left to fight with, and then we find something else. We turned warfare into a science, and then we turned that science into an art. Give us an example, Korak demanded. Marcus thought for a moment. There's a human saying, the enemy's gate is down. It means that in combat, there's no such thing as up or down, only the direction you need to go to reach your target. Human soldiers are taught to fight in 3 dimensions, to use every surface as potential cover, to turn any environment into an advantage. He gestured to the arena around them. This is designed for traditional combat, 2 opponents on a level surface, with clear sight lines and nowhere to hide. A human warrior would see 7 different ways to use the arena's features as weapons, and at least 12 escape routes you probably haven't considered. The Ravager warriors exchanged glances. Their arena had been carefully designed to prevent exactly the kind of tactical advantages Marcus was describing. "Impossible," one of them called out. "We've been using this arena for generations. Every angle has been calculated." "Show me," Marcus said simply. Grakoth gestured to his warriors. "Clear the arena floor. Let the human demonstrate these techniques he speaks of." As the arena emptied, except for Marcus, War Chief Grakoth, and a few senior warriors, Marcus began to move through the space with fluid precision. He showed them how the slight variations in floor height could be used for leverage, how the lighting created shadows that could conceal movement, how the ventilation systems provided handholds for rapid elevation changes. "Here," Marcus said, demonstrating a move that took him from the center of the arena to the top tier of seating in a matter of seconds, using nothing but architectural features the Ravagers had never considered tactically relevant. "And here." He dropped down behind several warriors before they could react, moving through blind spots created by their own positioning. "In human military training, we call this environmental exploitation," Marcus explained as he rejoined them. "The battlefield is just another weapon if you know how to use it." Korak shook his massive head in amazement. "We have been thinking too simply. We see an arena for combat, you see a 3-dimensional puzzle to be solved." "That's the difference," Marcus agreed. "You fight with your strength, humans fight with everything." Grakoth was quiet for several minutes, processing what he'd seen and heard. Finally, he spoke. "If what you say is true, then humans represent either the greatest potential allies or the greatest potential threat the Ravager nation has ever encountered." "Why not both?" Marcus asked. "Allies to those who deserve friendship, threats to those who earn enmity." "And what have we earned?" Marcus considered this carefully. His answer would determine not just the fate of the mining colony, but potentially the future relationship between humanity and one of the galaxy's most feared warrior cultures. "You've earned a chance to prove what kind of warriors you really are," he said finally. "The question is what you'll do with that chance." War Chief Grakoth looked around at his assembled warriors, then back at Marcus. "The Ravager codes require that we honor our agreement. We will withdraw from this system as promised, but I would hear more of this proposal." "What would you like to know?" "How would such an alliance work? Humans and Ravagers have very different approaches to everything." Marcus nodded. "True, but different approaches can complement each other. Ravagers understand honor, courage, and direct action. Humans understand strategy, adaptation, and long-term planning. Together, we might accomplish things neither could achieve alone." "And the first step would be?" "Release the Picorians you've captured," Marcus said immediately. "Return their stolen property. Show the galaxy that Ravager honor means something." Several warriors growled at this suggestion. One of them, a scarred veteran named Thorak, stepped forward. "War Chief, we have taken those captives according to the ancient laws of warfare. To release them without ransom would appear weak." "Would it?" Marcus asked before Grakoth could respond. "Or would it demonstrate that Ravagers are strong enough to show mercy when they choose to?" "Explain," Grakoth commanded. "Anyone can capture the helpless," Marcus said, looking directly at Thorak. "It takes no skill, no courage, no honor, but choosing to protect the innocent, that requires real strength. That's what separates warriors from bullies." Thorak's hand moved toward his weapon, but Grakoth's raised claw stopped him. "The human speaks wisely," the war chief said slowly. "We have grown too comfortable fighting those who cannot fight back. When did we last face an opponent who truly tested our abilities?" "Never," Korak admitted. "We choose our targets for their weakness, not their strength." "Then we have become what the human calls bullies, not warriors," Grakoth concluded. His voice carried the weight of profound realization. "Release the Picorians, return their property. We will find worthier opponents to test ourselves against." "But War Chief," Thorak protested. "Are you questioning my judgment?" Grakoth's voice carried an edge of danger that made several warriors step back. "No, War Chief, but the other clans will see this as weakness. They will challenge your leadership." "Let them come," Grakoth said with a grim smile. "It has been too long since I faced a challenge worthy of my abilities." Marcus watched this exchange with growing respect. Grakoth was not just a powerful warrior. He was a leader willing to make difficult decisions for the long-term good of his people. War Chief, Marcus said, if I may suggest a solution to the political problem Thorak mentioned. Speak. Don't just release the Pecorians for free. Instead, offer to escort them safely home as part of a new service the Ravager Nation is providing, protection for peaceful convoys traveling through dangerous space. Grakoth's eyes lit up with understanding. Ah, we transform from raiders to guardians, a complete reversal of role that would confuse our enemies and impress our allies. Exactly, and it gives your warriors the combat they crave, but against real threats instead of innocent civilians. The other clans would struggle to argue against such logic, Korak mused. Who could call us weak for choosing stronger opponents? Thorak was nodding slowly. It could work, but it would require significant changes to our operational structure. All significant achievements require significant changes, Marcus pointed out. The question is whether the Ravager Nation is ready to become something greater than it has been. Grakoth walked to the center of the arena and raised his voice so all could hear. Warriors of the Ravager Nation, today we have learned that our understanding of the galaxy is flawed. We have grown comfortable hunting prey that offers no real challenge. This human has shown us that true strength lies not in dominating the weak, but in confronting the strong. The assembled warriors listened with growing excitement as their leader continued. From this day forward, the Ravager Nation will offer its services to protect the innocent and hunt the guilty. We will seek out the real predators of space, the slavers, the pirates, the destroyers of innocence. Let the galaxy learn that Ravager honor means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The response was deafening. Hundreds of warrior voices raised in approval, the sound echoing off the arena walls like thunder. These were beings who had grown tired of easy victories against helpless prey. The prospect of real challenges, real tests of their abilities, awakened something that had been dormant too long. But as the cheering died down, Marcus realized that the most difficult part was still ahead. Changing the fundamental nature of an entire warrior culture would require more than inspirational speeches. It would take careful planning, diplomatic skill, and the kind of patience that didn't come naturally to anyone in this arena. War Chief, he said quietly, if you're serious about this transformation, you'll need help. The galaxy won't trust Ravagers overnight, no matter how noble your intentions become. What kind of help? Grakoth asked. Political support, diplomatic connections, someone to vouch for your new direction to the authorities who currently see you as criminals. And you could provide this. Marcus smiled. I think I know some people who might be interested in giving you a chance to prove yourselves, but it won't be easy and it won't be quick. We are Ravagers, Grakoth said simply. We do not expect easy. Good, Marcus replied, because what I'm about to propose might be the hardest thing your people have ever attempted. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the Galactic Council station orbiting New Geneva, watching as 3 Ravager heavy cruisers approached through the designated diplomatic corridor. The sight of those black, predatory-looking ships would have sent panic through the station's population not too long ago. Today, they carried diplomatic flags and moved with the measured pace of honored guests rather than raiders. I still can't believe this is actually working, said Ambassador Kethril, the Altarian representative who had become Marcus's primary liaison with the Council. Her silver skin rippled with nervous energy as she watched the approaching vessels. 6 months ago, the Ravager Nation was classified as one of the galaxy's primary threats. Now they're being considered for membership in the Galactic Defense Initiative. Marcus smiled, remembering his own doubts during those first chaotic weeks after the confrontation at Zirian 7. It almost didn't work. There were some very tense moments. That was an understatement. The initial reaction from galactic authorities had ranged from disbelief to outright hostility. The idea that the Ravager Nation could transform from raiders to protectors seemed impossible to most civilized species. It had taken dozens of meetings, thousands of pages of documentation, and several very carefully arranged demonstrations to convince anyone that the change was genuine. The breakthrough had come when the Ravagers successfully defended a civilian convoy from actual pirates, not in a staged exercise, but in real combat against a coalition of slavers who had been terrorizing the Outer Rim worlds. The efficiency and honor with which Grakoth's warriors had eliminated the threat while protecting every single civilian had forced even the most skeptical observers to reconsider their preconceptions. The preliminary reports from their latest assignment are quite impressive, Kethril continued, consulting her data pad. They eliminated an entire network of illegal mining operations that had been strip mining protected worlds. No civilian casualties, full recovery of stolen resources, and complete dismantling of the criminal organization responsible. They're getting better at this, Marcus agreed. Grakoth has been rotating his warriors through different types of missions to build their skills in protective operations rather than just destructive ones. And the other clans are following his example. Most of them, there are still a few holdout groups who prefer the old ways, but they're becoming isolated. It's hard to argue with success, especially when that success brings both honor and profit. The truth was that the transformation had been beneficial for the Ravagers in ways none of them had anticipated. Instead of constantly looking over their shoulders for revenge-seeking enemies, they now had the backing of legitimate governments. Instead of scraping together resources from random raids, they had steady contracts and reliable income. And instead of being feared and hated throughout the galaxy, they were earning something they had never experienced before: respect. Ambassador Chen, a new voice interrupted his thoughts. Marcus turned to see Lieutenant Commander Sarah Rodriguez approaching, her crisp human military uniform a stark contrast to the flowing robes worn by most of the diplomatic staff. Admiral Akafer wants to see you in the secure briefing room. Marcus nodded to Kethril. The Ravagers should be docking within the hour. Their delegation will expect to be received with full honors. I'll make sure the protocol is followed exactly, Kethril assured him. Though I admit, 6 months ago, if someone had told me I'd be arranging honor guards for Ravager war chiefs, I would have questioned their sanity. As Marcus followed Commander Rodriguez through the station's corridors, he reflected on how much had changed, not just for the Ravagers, but for humanity's position in the galactic community. The successful negotiation with the Ravager nation had elevated Earth's diplomatic status considerably. Other species were beginning to see humans as valuable mediators, capable of bridging gaps between cultures that seemed incompatible. The secure briefing room was a testament to the paranoia that characterized galactic politics: shielded walls, encryption scramblers, and detection grids that could identify any attempt at surveillance. Admiral Enkem Akafer, the highest-ranking human military officer in this sector, stood before a holographic display showing ship movements throughout the local systems. Marcus, Admiral Akafer said without preamble, "We have a problem." The holographic display zoomed in on a remote system near the galactic rim. Red indicators marked the locations of several ships, their trajectories and energy signatures displayed in damning detail. 3 days ago, a Ravager clan called the Bloodied Fang attacked and destroyed a scientific research station in the Kilo system, Admiral Akafer continued. 47 researchers killed, all equipment stolen or destroyed. No survivors. Marcus felt his stomach drop. That can't be right. All Ravager clans signed the honor accords. They agreed to cease raiding operations. All except one, Commander Rodriguez said, manipulating the display to highlight the attacking ships. The Bloodied Fang clan refused to participate in Grakoth's transformation. They've been operating independently, and according to our intelligence, they're specifically targeting human-affiliated installations. Why, Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Because they blame humans for corrupting Ravager culture, Admiral Akafer explained. Their war chief is someone called Vorthak the Relentless. He's been spreading propaganda that the new protective role is making Ravagers weak and subservient to alien interests. Marcus studied the tactical display, noting the efficiency of the attack patterns. How many ships do they have? Intelligence estimates 12 to 15 vessels, including at least 2 heavy cruisers. Not enough to threaten a major system, but more than sufficient to terrorize isolated outposts and research stations. And they're specifically targeting humans. Human-affiliated installations, yes. The research station they hit was a joint Earth-Altarian xenobiology project. They made a point of broadcasting their reasons for the attack, calling it punishment for humanity's corruption of Ravager honor. Marcus sank into a chair, processing the implications. The fragile alliance he'd helped build was being threatened by the very forces it had been designed to control. Worse, The attacks against human interests could undermine everything the Ravager nation had accomplished in the past 6 months. "What's the Council's reaction?" he asked. "Predictable," Admiral Ockhaffer said grimly. "Several species are calling for the Galactic Defense Initiative to declare the entire Ravager nation a hostile force again. They're arguing that you can't trust any of them if some clans can simply opt out of agreements." "That's not fair," Marcus protested. "Grakoth and his alliance have honored every commitment they've made. They can't be held responsible for rogue clans that rejected their authority." "Politics isn't about fairness," Commander Rodriguez pointed out. "It's about perception and security. If the Council believes that Ravager agreements are meaningless because some clans can simply ignore them, then the entire diplomatic initiative collapses." "There has to be a solution," Marcus said, his mind racing through possibilities. "What does Grakoth say about this?" "He's furious," Admiral Ockhaffer replied. "According to our communications with his fleet, he considers the Bloodied Fang's actions a direct insult to Ravager honor. He's requesting permission to hunt them down and force them to comply with the accords." "That might work," Marcus said slowly. "If Grakoth's forces can demonstrate that the Ravager nation polices its own members, it would show the Council that the Alliance is serious about maintaining order. Except that Ravager-on-Ravager warfare could destabilize the entire region," Commander Rodriguez pointed out. "If different clans start fighting each other, it could spiral into a civil war that affects dozens of systems." Marcus was quiet for several minutes, considering options and their consequences. The solution, when it came to him, was elegant in its simplicity but terrifying in its implications. "I need to speak with Grakoth personally," he said finally. "He's on his way here for the Council meetings," Admiral Ockhaffer replied. "You'll have your chance in a few hours." "No, not here. I need to meet with him aboard his ship privately before the Council session." "That's irregular," Commander Rodriguez protested. "Diplomatic protocols require—" "Diplomatic protocols assume we're dealing with conventional problems," Marcus interrupted. "This situation requires unconventional solutions." Admiral Ockhaffer studied him with keen eyes. "What are you thinking, Marcus?" "I'm thinking that sometimes the only way to solve a problem is to become part of it," Marcus replied. "The Bloodied Fang clan doesn't just reject the honor accords, they specifically reject human involvement in Ravager affairs. They see me as the symbol of everything they're fighting against." "You're not seriously considering—" "I'm considering exactly what you think I'm considering," Marcus said firmly. "If Vorthak wants to challenge human influence over Ravager culture, then let him face a human directly. Single combat, according to traditional Ravager law." The room fell silent. Admiral Ockhaffer and Commander Rodriguez exchanged looks of horror. "Marcus," Admiral Ockhaffer said carefully, "you defeated Korak because you caught him by surprise with techniques he'd never encountered before. But word of that victory has spread throughout Ravager space. Vorthak will be prepared for human tactics." "Maybe," Marcus acknowledged. "But I'll be prepared for him too, and more importantly, this approach addresses the political problem as well as the military one." "Explain," Commander Rodriguez demanded. "If I challenge Vorthak to single combat and win, it proves that human involvement in Ravager affairs is legitimate according to their own cultural standards. If I lose," Marcus shrugged, "well, at least the Council will know that humans are willing to put their lives on the line to maintain the alliance they helped create." "This is insane," Admiral Ockhaffer said flatly. "This is necessary," Marcus corrected. "The alternative is watching everything we've built collapse because one rogue clan decided to spit on the honor of their own people." The Admiral studied him for a long moment. "You realize that this time you won't have the element of surprise. Vorthak will know exactly how you defeated Korak. He'll be ready for every technique you used." "Then I'll have to use different techniques," Marcus said simply. "And if that's not enough—" Marcus thought of the research station that had been destroyed, the 47 scientists who had died simply because they were affiliated with humanity. He thought of Grakoth and the thousands of Ravager warriors who had embraced a new way of life based on protection rather than predation. He thought of the fragile peace that could shatter if the wrong precedent was set here. "Then at least I'll die fighting for something worthwhile," he said quietly. Admiral Ockhaffer was silent for another long moment, then nodded slowly. "Get me a secure channel to War Chief Grakoth," she ordered. "If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right." As Commander Rodriguez moved to establish the connection, Marcus stared at the holographic display showing the bloodied Fang's attack patterns. Vorthak the Relentless had chosen his name well. Ravager intelligence suggested he had never retreated from a fight, never shown mercy to an enemy, and never accepted defeat in any form. In a few hours, Marcus would be asking him to face a human in single combat, knowing that this time there would be no element of surprise to rely on. This time, it would come down to pure skill, determination, and the kind of luck that had kept humanity alive in a hostile galaxy. Marcus smiled grimly. Those were odds he could live with, assuming he lived through them at all. The asteroid field where the challenge would take place drifted silently in the void between star systems, chosen specifically because it belonged to no government and fell under no jurisdiction except Ravager law. Marcus stood in the observation bay of Grakoth's flagship, watching as dozens of Ravager vessels arranged themselves in a vast circle around the largest asteroid, which had been hastily converted into an arena. "You understand that Vorthak will not underestimate you as Korak did," Grakoth said quietly, his massive frame casting a shadow across the viewport. "He has studied recordings of your previous combat extensively. He knows how you move, how you think, how you fight." "I'm counting on it," Marcus replied, checking the fit of the light armor he'd been provided. Unlike his first encounter, this challenge would be fought with traditional weapons according to ancient Ravager protocols. Overconfidence was Korak's weakness. Vorthak's weakness will be his obsession with preparation. "Explain," Korak said from behind them. The former champion had become one of Marcus's most dedicated allies, fascinated by human tactical thinking and eager to learn more about the species that had defeated him. "Vorthak has spent weeks studying video of my fight with you," Marcus said, turning to face them. "He knows every technique I used, every movement I made. He's probably trained specifically to counter those exact tactics." "That sounds like an advantage for him," Grakoth observed. "Only if I use the same tactics," Marcus smiled. "But humans learn from their experiences. We adapt. What worked against Korak won't work against Vorthak, so I won't try to use it." Through the viewport, they could see the bloodied Fang fleet taking their positions on the opposite side of the asteroid arena. Their ships were smaller than Grakoth's Alliance fleet, but they flew with the aggressive precision of warriors who had never known defeat. There, Korak pointed to a massive battle cruiser with jagged hull modifications. "Vorthak's flagship, the Bone Reaper Asterisk. I fought alongside him decades ago before his clan rejected the Alliance. He is formidable." "More formidable than you?" Marcus asked. Korak considered this seriously. "Physically, yes, he is larger, stronger, faster, but he fights with rage where I fought with discipline. Rage makes one powerful but predictable." "Good to know," Marcus said, filing away this information. Every detail about his opponent could matter in the arena. A communication signal chimed, and Vorthak's scarred visage appeared on the main view screen. Where Grakoth and his warriors had adapted their appearance to seem more civilized, Vorthak looked like something out of a nightmare. Ritual scarification covered every visible inch of his massive frame, and his eyes held the kind of fanatical intensity that made reasoning impossible. "So," Vorthak growled, "the human corruption shows its face at last. You have turned proud Ravager warriors into lapdogs for alien masters, soft skin. Today I will demonstrate the price of such weakness." "Today you'll demonstrate why the galaxy was right to fear Ravagers," Marcus replied calmly. "But not for the reasons you think." Vorthak's laugh was like grinding metal. "Fear? They will fear us again when I tear you apart piece by piece. When the other species see what happens to those who try to tame the Ravager spirit, they will remember why we are meant to be conquerors, not servants." "You're already serving," Marcus pointed out. "You're serving your own pride. The only difference is that Grakoth's warriors serve something greater than themselves." The communication channel cut abruptly, leaving the observation bay in tense silence. "He is more unstable than I remembered," Korak observed. "That may work in your favor or against it." An hour later, Marcus found himself aboard a transport shuttle heading for the asteroid arena. The conversion work had been impressive. Artificial gravity, breathable atmosphere, and proper lighting had all been installed in less than 12 hours. The arena itself was smaller than the one aboard Grakoth's ship, barely 15 meters across, with no elevated seating for spectators. This was meant to be intimate, personal, and absolutely final. Representatives from nearly every Ravager clan in the sector had gathered to witness this challenge. The outcome would determine not just the fate of the Honor Accords, but the future direction of Ravager civilization. Would they continue their transformation into protectors of the innocent, or would they return to the old ways of raid and pillage? Vorthak was already waiting when Marcus arrived, and seeing him in person was genuinely intimidating. The Ravager war chief stood nearly 3.5 meters tall, with muscles that looked like they could crush steel and claws that gleamed with fresh sharpening. Where Korak had been a professional warrior, Vorthak was a force of nature barely contained in biological form. "Behold the great human champion," Vorthak announced to the assembled witnesses. "Smaller than a Ravager child, weaker than our eldest veterans, yet he claims the right to dictate terms to warrior clans. Today I will show you what humans truly are, soft, weak creatures who rely on tricks and deception because they cannot win through honest strength." Marcus walked quietly to the center of the arena, his chosen weapon, a traditional Ravager combat staff, held loosely in his hands. The weapon was nearly as tall as he was, with weighted ends and a grip designed for much larger hands than his own. "Are you ready to die, Softskin?" Vorthak taunted, flexing claws that could probably slice through the armor Marcus wore. "I'm ready to fight," Marcus replied simply. "The outcome is up to fate." "Fate?" Vorthak laughed again. "There is no fate here except your death and the end of human meddling in Ravager affairs." The ritual words were spoken, the ancient codes invoked, and suddenly the arena erupted into violence as Vorthak charged with the speed of a projectile weapon. His claws extended to their full length, aimed directly at Marcus's throat. But Marcus wasn't there when the attack arrived. Instead of retreating or sidestepping as he had against Korak, Marcus moved forward and down, sliding under Vorthak's extended arms while sweeping his combat staff in a wide arc that connected with the Ravager's knee joint. Vorthak stumbled but recovered quickly, spinning to backhand at where Marcus should have been. Again, the human wasn't there, having rolled behind his opponent and struck at the back of the other knee with the weighted end of his staff. "Stop running," Vorthak roared, whirling to face his opponent. "Fight like a warrior." "I am fighting like a human," Marcus replied, circling just outside the reach of those deadly claws. "That's the difference." Vorthak charged again, this time more carefully, ready for evasive maneuvers. But Marcus didn't evade. Instead, he planted his staff against the arena floor and used it like a pole vault, launching himself up and over Vorthak's head to land behind him. The crowd of Ravager spectators erupted in confused noise. This wasn't how combat was supposed to work. Warriors faced each other with strength and courage, not with acrobatic displays that looked more like entertainment than battle. But Korak, watching from beside Grakoth, understood what he was seeing. "He's not trying to defeat Vorthak quickly," he said quietly. "He's studying him, learning his patterns." "Dangerous strategy," Grakoth observed. "Vorthak's strength and speed advantages will tell eventually." "Maybe," Korak replied. "But look at how Vorthak moves. He's fighting the human he studied in the recordings, not the human in front of him now." It was true. Vorthak's attacks were specifically designed to counter the tactics Marcus had used against Korak: close quarters grappling, pressure point strikes, and the use of an opponent's momentum against them. But Marcus wasn't using any of those techniques. Instead, he was fighting at range, using his weapon's length to stay just beyond Vorthak's reach while landing quick, precise strikes wherever he could find openings. "You cannot hide forever," Vorthak snarled, his breathing becoming labored as the extended combat began to take its toll. "I will catch you eventually." "You're probably right," Marcus agreed, dodging another swipe of those massive claws. "But every minute this fight continues, you're proving my point." "What point?" Marcus smiled as he struck another quick blow, this one to Vorthak's elbow joint. "That humans are worth taking seriously." For the first time, uncertainty flickered in Vorthak's eyes. This small, weak creature should have been dead within seconds. Instead, it had been avoiding his attacks for nearly 10 minutes while landing dozens of minor strikes that were beginning to accumulate into genuine damage. "The galaxy fears Ravagers," Marcus continued, keeping up his constant motion around the arena's perimeter. "But they respect humans. Do you know why?" "Because they are fools." Vorthak lunged forward, putting all his strength into a devastating attack that would have torn Marcus in half if it had connected. But Marcus had been expecting this and was already moving. Not away from the attack, but alongside it, using Vorthak's own momentum to spin him around while striking with the weighted end of the staff directly into the nerve cluster at the base of the Ravager's skull. Vorthak went down like a felled tree, unconscious before he hit the arena floor. The silence that followed was absolute. Hundreds of Ravager warriors stared in disbelief at their fallen champion, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Marcus stood over Vorthak's motionless form, breathing hard but victorious. "They respect us because we never give up," he said, his voice carrying clearly in the silence. "Because we adapt to any challenge. Because when everything seems hopeless, we find a way to keep fighting." He looked around at the assembled crowd, meeting the eyes of warriors who had believed themselves to be the ultimate arbiters of strength. Vorthak was faster than me, stronger than me, more experienced in combat than me. By every measure that Ravager culture values, he should have won this fight. But he didn't because he forgot the most important lesson of warfare. "What lesson?" called out one of the bloodied Fang warriors. "Your enemy gets a vote," Marcus replied. "Vorthak planned to fight the human from the recordings, but I'm not that human anymore. I learned from that experience, adapted my techniques, developed new strategies. While he was preparing to fight my past, I was preparing to fight his future." Vorthak stirred, slowly regaining consciousness. When he saw Marcus standing over him, the defeated war chief's face went through a range of emotions: confusion, shame, rage, and finally, reluctant respect. "How?" he asked simply. "By being human," Marcus replied, extending his hand to help Vorthak to his feet. "We don't win because we're the strongest or the fastest. We win because we never stop learning, never stop adapting, never stop fighting for what we believe in." Vorthak accepted the offered hand, allowing himself to be helped up despite the fact that he outweighed Marcus by several hundred kilograms. "According to our codes," he said slowly, "I must acknowledge your dominance and submit to your authority." "I don't want your submission," Marcus said firmly. "I want your partnership." "Partnership." The honor accords aren't about humans controlling Ravagers. They're about Ravagers and humans working together to accomplish things neither could achieve alone. Your clan is strong, experienced, and skilled. The galaxy needs warriors like you, but fighting on the right side. Vorthak looked around at his assembled warriors, then at Grakoth's fleet representatives, and finally back at Marcus. "And if we refuse, if we choose to return to the old ways?" Marcus shrugged. "Then you'll keep fighting for nothing but your own pride while the rest of your people earn honor protecting those who need protection. Eventually, you'll be alone, irrelevant, and forgotten. Or you'll join the Alliance and help build something that will be remembered for generations. Warriors who turned from predators into protectors. Ravagers who chose honor over easy prey." The decision took nearly an hour of heated discussion among the bloodied Fang warriors. There were arguments, challenges, and at least 2 brief physical altercations before Vorthak finally emerged from the crowd. "The bloodied Fang clan will honor the accords," he announced formally. "We will cease raiding operations against peaceful targets and offer our services for legitimate protective contracts." The cheer that went up from Grakoth's warriors was deafening, but Marcus barely heard it. He was too busy collapsing from exhaustion, adrenaline finally wearing off to reveal just how close he'd come to being torn apart by 3.5 meters of furious Ravager champion. As he was helped back to the transport shuttle, Marcus reflected on how far they'd all come. 6 months ago, the galaxy had seen Ravagers as nothing but pirates and humans as nothing but weak diplomatic interference. Now they were working together to protect the innocent and hunt the guilty. It wasn't perfect. There would be more challenges, more rogue clans to convince, more battles to fight. But for the first time since humanity had joined the galactic community, Marcus felt like they were building something that would last. Something worth fighting for. As the shuttle carried him back to Grakoth's flagship, Marcus smiled and closed his eyes. Tomorrow there would be more work to do, more alliances to build, more problems to solve. But today, the galaxy was a little bit safer than it had been yesterday. And sometimes that was enough.